Kumar. Today we have a session with one of those shining entrepreneurs, Mr. Manik Daruwala. He himself is an alumnus of Indian Institute of Management, Ahmedabad, of the batch of 1987. And after a couple of years in the corporate world, he, along with his two other esteemed colleagues, started the Time Centers in Hyderabad and in Cochin. A journey which began so many decades ago has now metamorphosed into a giant as a leader in test prep industry, especially the CAT MBA entrance. And now we are present geographically in more than 130 locations in the country, and the dominance is so huge that we produce more than 50% of the IM admissions in the last couple of years. Moving forward to the agenda of this talk, I am going to pose a couple of questions which are frequently being raised by the student community these days because of the uncertainty around the reaction to the COVID lockdown and the slowing down of the economy and the planning of the future career. And I thought, who better than Mr. Manik himself to be able to answer these questions because of his enormous amount of experience in the test prep industry and the education sector, and also his decades of experience in observation of many such cyclical ups and downs that the Indian economy has gone through. So, without much ado, let me start bombarding Mr. Manik with these questions. And before I send him the first question, let's extend a warm welcome. Hello, Mr. Manik.
Thank you, Shitang. Thank you for the kind words. It's always a great pleasure to interact with students. I've always felt that it's the interaction with young minds that keeps us young, and that's one of the biggest advantages of being a teacher. And I'm sure that today's session will be no different. There'll be very interesting and challenging questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer them. We are living in uncertain times, certainly fairly unique times, and there will be lots of doubts and queries in the minds of our students. I'll be more than happy to address these questions and share my thoughts on how our students can navigate through this period to the betterment of their careers. I'm sure everybody will come through this period with a lot of success. The only thing you need to do is plan for it.
Mr. Manik, one of the first questions that we face in our interaction with students is about their fear about the growth in the economy, which has slowed down and, in fact, contracting to some extent if some reports are to be believed. So they asked that during this COVID situation and lockdowns and stoppages of free economic activity because of the government regulations on safety, is this the right time to really invest in MBA entrance preparation? Shouldn't they wait a few months, or is there any other way of analyzing this situation? Would like you to give a response, sir.
So, Shwetank, the concern about the economy is a very real concern. There is no doubt that the economy has been falling in terms of growth fairly seriously, both in India and abroad. But let's look at it from the point of view of our students. Somebody who's preparing for CAT 20 will get into the CAT 21, will get into the IM 21-23 session. And if we look at the 21-23 session, we are talking of a start around June of 2021. Now, if we look at what is expected to happen between now and June of 2021, I think there's a fair bit of optimism that either a vaccine will be found or some medical treatment will emerge for COVID. Consequently, by 2021 June, when our current batch of students for CAT 20 will get into the B schools that they are hoping to get into, what will happen is that there is a more than fair chance that they will be looking at normal physical classes. Of course, the way the world has emerged in these last few weeks and months, of course, it is possible that apart from their classroom courses, they will also get some addition of online content. I think there is every possibility of the world moving in that direction where blended models will become more prevalent. And apart from classroom interaction, there will be a fair bit of online interaction, which will actually enhance value. It is not to be looked at as a disadvantage, it is an advantage. So, people doing CAT 20, to my mind, this is probably one of the best times to do the exam. There is so much concern about the exam right now. That would be a good time to write the exam seriously and get through and join for 2021. What happens after that? By the time you graduate, you spend 2 years on campus. It's 2023. And placements likely to happen around January or February of 2023. A good 2 years and 8 months from now. Enough and more time for economies across the world, including the Indian economy, to go down if it needs to and come right back up. Organizations that would have shed people or controlled recruitment during 2020 and 2021 will probably be looking big time to get back to normal and to recruit people by the time we get to 2023. So, if anything, in my opinion, 2023 would be an excellent time to pass out. The demand for top quality management graduates would be probably at one of its peaks. Keeping that in mind, this looks like a very good time to do MBA for those who are likely to graduate by 2023. If we look at what can happen thereafter, I think students can very reasonably hope for good career prospects having got out of the B school at a perfect kind of time. So I would say go right ahead, give it your best shot, make the effort required to get into IIM or top B schools through CAT 20. And frankly, the economy and the downturn in the economy that we are currently seeing will be a matter of the past by the time you need to worry about your placements in 2023.
Mr. Manik, another question that we frequently face when we interact with students, and is something that our audience might have on their minds also, is about the college students who are yet not finished with their college examinations. So people who typically would have moved from the pre-final year stage to the final year stage, their colleges or universities might not have finished their examination. In light of this uncertainty in their own graduation dates or moving from a particular year in a college to the next year in the college, is this the right time to start their preparation for a tough examination like CAT or the IIMs? Or should they wait for a couple of months when there is greater clarity on the academic calendar of their college exams?
So you're right, there is no doubt a great deal of concern amongst students on account of the uncertainty about their exams. Exams have been announced, postponed, cancelled, various things have happened. And this will remain a bit of a problem from the student's point of view. But what do we do about it and how do we tackle it? I think that's the important bit. So, first and foremost, as we just spoke, I think it's important that students firm up in their mind that CAT 20 is a very beneficial exam to write. If they write CAT 20, they'll be graduating at just the right time. So, first, the determination to write the CAT 20 exam should be firmly fixed in the student's mind. Then, next, they need to do their preparation plan. Since the exam dates are not yet certain, what's the next best thing to do? Start preparing for CAT immediately. The exam will be in November and you have a clear 4 months to prepare for it. Get going with the preparation in full earnest. Give it your best shot right from the beginning. Put in lots of time, maybe upward of 5 to 6 hours every day if you can. Certainly you should. And start preparing hard now. When the exams get announced, for some time, your CAT preparation will have to move on to the back burner and the college exam will come to the forefront. During that period, for that limited amount of time, focus on your exam, the college exam. But once that's out of the way, you would have already done a fair bit of preparation, and that will help you to be ready by November. You can't afford to ignore your college exams, but at the same time, till they are announced, the best thing to do is to give your CAT preparation a very solid shot, because if you start your preparation now, you'll certainly be better off when the college exams are announced. A certain amount of preparation would have been done, and you can afford to spend enough time for your college exams and then get back to your CAT preparation. So I think that's the most practical solution under the circumstances.
Some students also ask that because of late some institutions who have opened their academic calendars like the IIMs, and quite a few of them have announced an online trimester for the first 1 or 2 months. So they doubt whether the amount of learning that they are going to get in the campus is going to be the same as when they would be in the campus face to face with other students and competing with them and interacting with the professors. So is this really a good time to get the maximum value add advantage from an MBA program? Because the first couple of months might go online, at least in the current season. What is your take on this, sir?
So let's answer this question separately for the current session, that is the 2020-22 session, and separately for the next session, that's the 21-23 session. As far as the 21-23 session is concerned, that is next year's session, which is relevant to our students who are currently the audience for this discussion. As far as the 21-23 session is concerned, like I said, reasonable expectations would mean that the sessions would get back to fairly much normal, implying therefore that there will be physical classes, there will be normal interaction. Maybe there could be a little bit of reduced physical interaction, and some part of that physical interaction may move on to an online platform, which is something which in any case I think people are looking at as the way forward. That a certain amount of blended learning is likely to come into all areas of education, where there will be a certain amount of online content added to the regular classroom content. But all that is for 21-23. My thought is, like I said in the answer to your previous question, it would be pretty much normal or fairly close to normal. That's the expectation. That said, let me also answer the question for those who are not here, the people who are doing 2022 session. The fact that the learning is online rather than physical need not necessarily mean that the learning will be reduced or that you will be disadvantaged. I don't think that's how it has to be understood. After all, the people who are there to teach you and the faculty team that is there is well versed in how to make sure that you get the maximum learning, how the interaction will be managed, whether it is online, and how the student will have to interact with other students, how he will get his interaction with the faculty. All that will be managed by the institute. I don't think those who are doing 2022 need to worry about the quantum of their learning. The only thing they need to keep in mind is that it's different. And because it's different, you need to keep an open mind to the whole thing. With an open mind and with a welcome acceptance of reality, I think the learning can easily be optimized to the same level as it would be if it was the regular physical class. So once you got into something, make the best of it, put in all the effort that requires to make it normal, and go ahead and do that. That would be my advice to the student who is just joining a top B school and is having to do his first trimester online.
Mr. Manik, this brings me to my next question that I would like to pose to you is about some realistic problems that students are facing currently, which is about financing their cost of their MBA at the premier institutions like the IIMs. And they ask that because of uncertainty in the income of whichever family background they came from, whatever was the earning potential, they are not very confident of stabilizing at a particular level, and therefore taking the financial risk of paying a high amount of fees at an IIM. So what are the other support systems or benefits or the ways out that which can be suggested to students to be able to get relaxed on the financial front?
So, Shwetank, this is a fairly valid doubt. Fees for the MBA course have pretty much gone through the roof over these last few years, and many students worry about how they will be able to finance it, even if they are able to get through. First of all, getting into an IIM or getting into a top B school is a huge challenge in itself. And then having got in, this concern about how will I fund it. Fortunately, along with the increase in fees, there has also been a reasonable increase, in fact, more than reasonable increase in scholarships and loans that are available. So there are two, three different things. As far as scholarships are concerned, there are both merit scholarships and means scholarships. Doing well in the entrance exam and scoring high is one of the ways which will help you to get into a situation where your college, in certain colleges, of course, will give you a reduction in fees. So, doing well is important from many different ways. You can get a fee reduction, you can get a scholarship, which is based on the merit of your performance. And this could significantly reduce the burden. There are also means scholarships, particularly at government colleges and colleges which have government support, and at a few private colleges too, where if you come from a strata which has a lower income, then you will get help from the government, you will get help from the college towards scholarship for your fees. So there can either be a fee reduction or the college can pay a certain part of your fee depending on the merit or the means of the case, which is in that sense a great thing. But for all those who can't get into either of these two buckets, there is also, particularly at the top institutes, the distinct possibility, in fact, almost certainty, of getting a loan scholarship. This loan scholarship is scholarship only in name. Actually, it's a loan. Mostly the banks give it. And what happens in this case is because you got into a top university or a top B school like an IIM, the paperwork that you need to do and the collateral requirements that are there for guaranteeing your loan, those are substantially reduced and in many cases done away with. So you can virtually be assured of a loan if you are getting into a top B school. There's one more important thing here, and that is how will you pay back your loan? Fortunately, if you are gunning for a top school, then the kind of placement salaries which you can look at, in many cases at places like the IIMs, your starting salary could be upwards of 22 lakh rupees. In such cases, your loans can be repaid reasonably quickly and without too much stress. So it's all boiling down to the same thing. We're getting back to the same place. Do well in CAT, get a good score, gun for a merit scholarship. If you don't get a merit scholarship because you're at a top B school like an IIM or into one of the top 30, 50 schools in the country, you will get a loan. That loan will see you through your fee stage, and once you are done, the kind of placement you will get will hopefully not make it difficult at all for you to be able to repay your loan. So work hard, prepare well for the exam, crack the exam well, and the finances also will get taken care of. I think that's a win-win situation, but you know what you have to do.
Mr. Manik, the next question is related to the short-term preparation time zone available between now and CAT 2020 this year itself, the likely date of November. So students also ask that if I begin right now and only 4 months are left, is this time period enough to really prepare for an exam like CAT 2020? So what advice would you want to give to these students?
So there's a saying that work expands to fill time. And for those who prepare for long term programs for CAT, I think sometimes the leisure and the goof off expands to fill the time. Hence, frankly, the actual time spent preparing is the number of hours that you work with your books, work with your notes, work with your tests. It doesn't depend so much on when you start as much as it depends on how much do you put in after you start. It's 1:30. So let's take the current situation. Anybody preparing for CAT starting end of July will have about 4 months to CAT: August, September, October, and November. The exam is expected to be around the last Sunday of November. So, rough calculation says we have about 120 days. If somebody puts in 4 to 5 hours per day, that amounts to about 5 to 600 hours of preparation between now and the exam. There are 3 sections that you need to prepare for, and that gives you roughly about 200 hours per section. Enough, frankly, enough time if you prepare with concentration. So it's not just about how many hours you put in, but what do you put into those hours. If you concentrate well, take the timetable that I spoke of and generate anywhere between 500 and maybe even 700 hours of preparation, that kind of preparation time is more than enough. Let me share a small snippet from history. When we started time in 1992, the first batch of time started on the 2nd of September. Yes, you heard it right, September. The exam used to be in early December. So typically, all CAT preparations then used to be about 3.5, 4 months. Nobody would start a CAT batch and nobody would join for a CAT course before September. Over a period of time, September moved to August, August moved to July, and so on. And like I said, work expanded to fill time. If you are serious about your CAT preparation, if you sincerely believe that this is the right time for me to do it, then without too much of doubt, you have enough time. Just put in a lot of effort into the time that you have, concentrate, focus, time is sufficient. That's all I can say. I think you can really give it a good shot.
Another genuine problem, sir, that some of the students have faced is about discovering a new type of balance that they need to really establish in their timetable and schedule for preparing for these examinations. So if there is a working executive and who's predominantly working from home, or there are college students who are getting some online lectures from their colleges while they are sitting back at home, they are viewing this on the internet connections on their mobiles or computers. How do they plan the remaining time of the day to be able to get the online classes, let's say from a coaching institute like Time, or in general for CAT preparation? What advice would you want to give to them in terms of balancing their remaining obligatory requirements with what their ambition is driving them towards?
So, this is all about where there is a will, there is a way. Isn't that true? If you look at it, Shwetank, in the non COVID era, people had to go to college, working people had to go to work, they had to spend time traveling. and they had to balance this with their CAT preparation whenever they chose to do it. The same thing applies now. How is it different? If anything, if you ask me, you're saving on travel time, and you can also have the liberty of adjusting the gaps between your work or college and your CAT preparation. You can juggle the two a little more efficiently because you're working from home, you're studying from home, and you're doing your CAT preparation also from home. What is actually required, on a serious note, what is actually required is a proper disciplined timetable. So you start your CAT preparation at a particular time, which is outside of your college hours or work hours. Put in maybe 2 hours in the morning, maybe an hour or an hour and a half, certainly soon after work in the evening, and maybe another couple of hours after dinner. So if you are able to get the discipline to do 2 hours early in the morning, 2 hours late in the evening, you can probably fit in an hour or two during the day as well. That should be enough. I think if you are disciplined about it and you plan it well, then probably working from home actually gives you more time for preparing for CAT, and you actually may be able to do a better job of it.
Mr. Manik, couple of questions that I am going to raise to you now are not specifically because of the COVID situation, but in general, some kind of confusion that students have in their minds regarding their profiles. So one is that many college-going students or who are recently graduated from a college typically think that the top B schools like IIMs pay a lot of weightage to working experience background. So isn't it better for them to postpone their ambition of getting into a top B school or an MBA college and instead go to the industry and try and get some kind of work experience, because that will be very helpful in getting an admission. So please throw some light on this aspect of WorkX parameter in the profile of a candidate.
Well, Shwetank, so the question basically is how important or necessary is it to have work experience in order to be able to get into an IIM? Now, I don't know how it's happened, but this is one of the most popular myth that is widely going around, and which students make the mistake of believing that work experience is very important to get into an IIM. Do you know what the maximum weightage is for work experience amongst the selection criteria? So let's look at the selection criteria first. CAT score, academic performance, correct? Work experience, GD interview. 4 criteria. Out of these 4 criteria, we are talking of the weightage of work experience in order to get an interview call or to get a final selection. If you leave out one out of the 20 IIMs that are there, one of them has got 20% weightage. But other than that, nobody has got more than 10% weightage. No IIM has got more than 10% weightage for WorkX in the selection process. 10%. Sure, it is 10%, but how I would like to look at it is, if I don't have work experience, my glass is not half full, my glass is 90% full. I've got 90% in my controllables and only 10% in my non-controllables. And if you put in a good CAT performance, you do well in your GDN interview, you have reasonably good ACATs, that 90% is more than enough to take you over the line. More than enough. So let's also try to understand, why is WorkX important if it is? And what is the ground reality about students with WorkX at the IIMs? So the fact is that yes, maybe more than 50% of the students at IIMs do have work experience. That's a fact. But did they get in because of their work experience? No. That's important to understand. They didn't get in because they had that work experience. They got in because they combined to do well in all the four criteria, most importantly, CAT. CAT typically has about 50% weightage. At most IIMs, 50 plus percent of the weightage is for CAT. 10% we just spoke of work experience. Then there's GD interview and there's ACADS all put together, of which GD interview is again the more important. So between CAT and GD interview, which are the two controllables even starting now. Starting now also you can perform well in CAT, you can perform well in your GD interview, and that in most cases will amount to a large majority of the weightage in the selection criteria. So how do people with WorkX form the majority at the IIMs? Simple. You're in your final year, you write CAT, you don't have any work experience, you get 78 percentile, you don't make it. What do? Hopefully you get a job, start working, and prepare again for CAT. This time you do much better, you get 89 percentile, but you still don't make it to an IIM. So what do? You leave your job? No. You continue with your job, right? This time, when you write CAT, you get 98 percentile. You're preparing better, harder. Now you got 98 percentile. This time you make it to the IIMs. You make it to the IIMs and the profile will show that you have 2 years of work experience. What did you make it on account of? You made it on account of your CAT score and not on account of your work ex. Had you delivered the same 98 percentile in the first year when you were in college, if you had delivered the same 98 percentile then, you would probably have made it that time itself without any work ex. So work ex happens along the way. The weightage for it is there. There's a 10% weightage at most times. But the majority of people are making it on account of their CAT score and GD interview score and not on account of the work X factor. I think that's very important to understand. Unfortunately, with widespread use of social media, the details are often not understood. People read at the surface, and if somebody has to read at the surface and read that 55% of the people at IMA have got 2 years or more of work experience, they mix up the cause and the effect and they think that it is because of the work experience that they got in. It's not that. It's because they didn't get the CAT score to start with in the first year and the second year. That's why after 2 years of work, they made it. So I think that's important to understand. WorkX has a small weightage, but it's not the reason why people make it to the IIMs. That remains CAT and GD interview, and the most important being CAT.
Well, another question on profile, Mr. Manik, is regarding academic background that some students have gone through. A long time back during their schools and early college days, they might not have had the clarity or the ambition of going to an IIM, and their academics in 10th or 12th boards might have fluctuated. So they ask that I do not have a very high standard of consistency in my academic background, and I might not even possess work X many fresher students like we discussed. So they have heard that in the interview stage and the final admission stage, IIMs typically pay a lot of weightage to the past academic performance and the requirements of that nature. So if a student doesn't really have the most stellar of the academic standards in terms of the past indicators, does that student really need to be demotivated or give up on the IIMs? I would like you to throw some light.
Well, Shitang, this question is fairly similar to the previous one. In that case, we talked about the four criteria for getting into IIMs: CAT, ACADS, WorkX, GD interview. Here, in the case of ACADS, in the final selection, the weightage for ACADS is about 15%. In the getting into the IIM's interview stage, it's a little higher. But the point is that in final selection, the weightage for ACADS is 15%. The weightage for GD interview is 10%. Sorry, the weightage for WorkX is 10%, 15 and 10, 25. It still leaves us with 75% for GD interview and CAT. And therefore, once again, the answer is the same. While the weightage for ACADS is there for 15%, the way I want to look at it is, my glass is not half full, my glass is 75% full between CAT and GD interview, which are still to happen. So the point I am making is simple. Yes, ACADS has a weightage, but that is not the reason why you will make it or you will not make it to an IIM. The real reason why you will make it or not make it to IIM is based on the performance that you will put in starting now, not the history of your ACADS, not the reality of your WorkX. The reason why you will make it or not make it is how well do you get it? How well do you do in CAT? What kind of score do you crack? So crack a 98, crack a 99, have a decent academic background, fair enough, you don't need an outstanding one. More importantly, do well in GD interview. And in a majority of cases, you will be able to crack decent IIMs, good IIMs, even the top IIMs. Now, one caveat so that you know what the reality is. The caveat is that out of the 20 IIMs and another maybe top 10, 12, 15 B schools, each of them has a different criterion. So this breakup of marks for ACADS, GD interview, WorkX, CAT differs from IIM to IIM and institute to institute. So while I have given you the averages, the highest for ACADS is as high as 74%. So if you have a poor academic performance, you have to forget about that one particular IIM. But that's not the point. The point clearly is that if you put in good work in terms of effort going forward from here, there is every chance that you'll be able to make it to a number of very good IIMs, including top IIMs, including ABC, LIK. So that's the way we need to look at it. That's the planning we need to do. And what we need to understand very clearly is that there are a lot of criteria, but finally it is WorkX and academics that are misconstrued to have a high weightage. The truth is that it is CAT largest and next largest GD interview performance and written analysis performance. The written analysis and interview performance will really make the difference apart from your CAT score. So that's the reality. That's the truth.
Thank you, Mr. Manik, for these extremely clear arguments. And I hope students, you would have got now a decidedly higher amount of clarity on how to focus on things within your control and how to not spend time wasting worrying about things which are not totally under your control. Because it is a question of your career, therefore, any kind of postponement of a major decision like what should be the next step taken by you can lead to some slippage of time, which is an essential resource for you given the examination that you are targeting, because many people are ambitious for these kind of careers and the top institutes like the IIMs. Despite the ups and downs, just to summarize before we conclude this talk show, your controllables like your CAT performance or the upcoming GD interview performance, they carry a very high degree of weightage. So instead of worrying about a very small minuscule percentage which might affect little bit in your past academics assessment or the work experience assessment, it is important to look at so many students who without WorkX or without extremely high academic performance in their past still make it to the best of the B schools like the IIMs. Draw inspiration from that activity, and like Mr. Manik rightly pointed out, we have to look at what is the weightage given to the CAT written test and also to the GD interview second stage assessment process. In these uncertain times, whether you are waiting for a joining, whether you did not get a job, whether you did not get the appraisal that you liked, all these three things can be made much better by investing in skill upgradation so that you are sought after more eagerly by the prospective employers and the corporates tomorrow. And it's an extremely good investment in the current downtrending situation to look at next 2 years of investment into a program like MBA, which you would have sooner or later anyways thought to be a need. There is much more information available about some of these things that we discussed, including exam patterns or the college cutoffs or the weightages given by different colleges. So to our students and also to some outsiders who are viewing this session, I'll point out to our website www.timeforeducation.com, where you can go and easily navigate and get the right information that you want. So I would like you to let go of the confusion that you might be under because of various parameters like college exams or profile related doubts, and rather focus on the opportunity in front of you and make use of every bit of time available for you. All the best and thank you very much.